Okay, we should have sound now. Sorry about that. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything. Whenever they do an update, my sound setting seems to always change. So we should have sound at this point. If somebody can just give me a shout out just to make sure. It shows sound on my side here at this point. I know it didn't at the very beginning, but everything should be straight now. Yes, okay. Yeah, that one is a simple one. I need to just after Tuesday, if I haven't done anything, just check every single time they do an update because it always changes my default. Thank you, folks. Before we go any farther, there was a question up here. Robert Charles Manson asking about it. Now, I don't know if this is what you were looking for, but this was the item that I said... what was the wording you used? Blown away. This is one of them. I actually have 3 of these, just FYI. I didn't just get one. I got 3 of them. They're invitations to a Golden Gate Yacht Club, if that's the same thing we're talking about here. What was the question? I actually listened to the respectable. Thank you very kindly. Diana Mono, if I pronounced that right. Post Road Photos, how are you doing? Welcome from Connecticut as well. What described as a program that was from 1880s. I looked the video and it was a short entitled. I was wondering what kind of price tag is on something like that. And as always, thank you. What kind of price tag? Probably $275 or higher. $275 a piece on these. Again, I got 3. There's another one sitting up there. They open up. I think this is probably what you're talking about. I tried to quickly look up the video, but this is basically a schedule of performances and things at this event. Again, I got 3 of them. 2 of them are fairly similar, and the third one's a little different. Again, $275 is what I'd put on those. Because of the area, I might even put $375, maybe even higher than that. I'm not 100% sure as of yet. I can't find a single thing similar. I have buttons from the San Francisco Yacht Club, so and Golden Gate as well is the same area, which I think Golden Gate turned into the San Francisco Yacht Club, if I'm not mistaken. The Golden Gate Bridge was not there. The Golden Gate is named after when the sun comes up, it creates a golden entranceway into the harbor. Long story short, the Golden Gate, it's been called Golden Gate before there was ever a bridge there. Just that's the point I guess I'm trying to make. Hopefully that answers that one there for you. And thank you very kindly, Robert Charles Manson. Hang on, let me get my feedback up. It just bounced all around. Stephen, welcome. Black Crystal Dice, how you doing this evening? Mr. Lowe, welcome in the house. For those in Patreon, I just put up a video, and it's related to some questions. Tonight's topic, we're going to talk about reselling because I can't help it. I've been bombarded by people. I do Shopify, and I've talked about Shopify for quite some time, and I was bombarded with people with the sell-off, with the stock issues with Shopify. They're cutting off 10% or about 1,000 of their labor force. Their projections were off. They're not the only one. I know New York Times had an article in there which doesn't relate to what we do, in all honesty. I know for those who have brought up the New York Times article, which I've had probably 12 or 14 people probably just hit me up just on that article about the golden age of thrifting is done. There's no deals to be had, and fast retail clothing's taking over, which it is, honestly, but... clothing-wise is flooded right now. I can tell you without any doubt, there's no question on earth. I looked at some numbers earlier today when I was looking into the topic on the video for today. I looked into numbers, and the amount of clothing compared to just a couple years ago on eBay. I sold clothing. I keep track of stuff. I do random searches and stuff. It's like 20%. It's a huge increase, like 20% or more, just off the rough estimated searches that I did just for random items. It's 20% more or better. In some cases, it was over 40% more increase in items for sale versus 2 years ago. And then you've got big business stepping in the way. A lot of what's going on with eBay, in my opinion, is all funded by Wall Street these days. Venture capitalists, the people on the board of directors are help push this because, again, they want value out of it, and that's all that seems to matter for them. And that's literally putting investors into our markets. So if the markets don't go in their direction, they'll just leave and take their money somewhere else, and it'll crash markets across the board, is what my worry is. I've brought up similar things to eBay themselves, including a top-ranking executive there. I'm not going to call it a name, but it's somebody I've mentioned before. It's somebody I've talked to, including on video chats. But point of it is they're not even concerned. They're not even responding. If you ask them questions on stuff like that, they'll never respond. Never, ever, ever will eBay respond to anything like that. They've blown me off with a voice. They've blown me off and didn't even care to address a serious, sincere, nice, it was well worded, hey, this is what the issue is. I sent them 2 full pages typed out, and not a thing, nothing back, ever. Ignored it like it never happened. And then I even said, hey, you ignoring me? Oh, yeah, I forgot about it. Then he still never did anything. So they're not concerned on any of our take on what's going on. I can only tell you that reselling isn't dead, but what you're reselling may be dead. That's the biggest point here. Clothing, man, the national retailers are swamped with quick, cheap clothing. If you buy clothing off Amazon, how long do they last you? If you buy something from a discount or something, how long do those clothing pieces last you? Are the designs that are printed on them wearing off in 6-8 washes? I remember for sure, and I know I'm not crazy, just 20 years ago, even way back before then, a printed on silkscreen shirt would last for a long, long time. I still have 1 or 2 from when I was 17, and you can still see the design better than some of the ones I've only washed like half a dozen times. So the quality is going down, and that's what's flooding. I've been into some thrift stores real recently, including yesterday. I want to get a feel. Again, I do try to go out once in a blue moon. I may not be directly sourcing, but we were looking for something, a table still. But end of story is it's all like clothing that I could never make any money on. And that's the biggest point. And that's some of what New York Times was talking about in that article. It's out there. Just type in New York Times thrifting and golden, and then I think it should come up on just a regular Chrome search. I'm not going to put a link to the article because it's living on a whole fantasy, the whole idea of who they talk to and that they're not finding high-end designer clothing, and it wasn't a realistic article in my book. I don't even know who that person was, so it didn't matter to me either way. But if I was selling clothing, and hand to God, I'm not BSing or anything, anybody out there, if I had to sell clothing where I live, I'd probably be out on the street. Or I wouldn't be a reseller because I couldn't afford to live on the minuscule amount of clothing that shows up in the very few thrift stores that are around this area. We had 2 Savers at one time. They've closed down. Several other decent size, including one of the biggest ones, which was bigger than Goodwill, closed down right out by our house. So there's probably half as many thrift stores. Garage sales are scant, and even the ones that are out there, it's just everybody sees and says, oh, it's going to be worth so much money, so they have tons of high prices even at garage sales around here. I don't do estate sales much anymore because it seems that every time I do, I find out that the estate sale company lets somebody buy stuff the day before we even got to look at it, before it was even opened. I mean, I get in occasionally on a few, but the point is that it's like every time. I mean, even garage sales around here, what they do is they'll show up the night before like they read, or even the day before, and take a shot if it's something that they say they got a whole bunch of cool stuff. If this says vintage collectible signs or something, people are stopping a day or 2 ahead of time, acting like they mixed up the date of the sale. I've heard that at dozens and dozens and dozens of times. The estate sales around here, people will sit out there the night before. They'll switch off a couple or something. One will sit there for a couple hours, and then they'll switch off. It's gotten to be where it's cutthroat. And I don't need to deal with that. I don't know what everybody else does, but reselling itself isn't dead. We've switched what we sell. That's the biggest take I can say, and I'm glad I did when we did, and I'm glad I learned the other aspects and the other things that we sell now. I'm glad I learned how to find them. If you're not broadcasting out, you're not checking out new areas, and you're selling in a flooded category, say clothing, you probably are seeing a massive drop in your sales. At least the folks that I've talked to. I've talked to, I mean, a lot, hundreds and hundreds of people have reached out to me. And all my mailboxes are flooded. We had a couple viral videos. Some of our videos went wild, and I've just been flooded with stuff. This whole week's just been nonstop. I can't even get to the email or messages on normal platforms for like business like Ina and stuff. It's just been flooded out here lately. But we switched from clothing. I saw what was written on the wall ahead of time. I knew where it was going before the pandemic. The pandemic hits, and what happens? All the clothing that's there, and again, it's a lot of cheaper stuff. is backed up. So they're it's all over the place. It's everywhere I go. I've even seen one of the thrift stores around here. It's just over the Michigan border. Half their store is like NOS with tags, and it was donated to them by local stores. There's NOS like speakers. There's NOS like just all kinds of stuff that's would have been sold in a store at some point. I'm not really sure where it's all coming from. They wouldn't discuss it, but I did ask because it was just blowing me away that there's that much junk like that out in a store. One of the ones we went to yesterday. I'm not going to give that one away either, but they had a lot of stuff that was new, like decorations and stuff. I mean, brand spanking new, just like shelves of it. So I don't know what's going on, but around here, and they're selling them for maybe 30 cents on the, or 70 cents on the dollar, 30 cent or 30% off of what retail would be. I mean, I don't get it. If I was selling clothing, I wouldn't have any clothing to buy. There's the shoe wise would be horrendous. There's people that go into the high-end estate sales and just snag off shoes and clothing the day before now, it seems. So they're all picked. They're all inside deals and things like that around here. Again, I've got some people that reach out to me, but I don't snake it out from somebody else. I don't misrepresent what I'm doing. I don't say, hey, I never seen it before, even though I was in there the day before and bought all the good stuff out. I wouldn't go along with that because I don't think that's cool. I don't like when somebody does that to me when I'm out there. I think that's a poor way to do business. Again, greed comes back into play. I don't have to be a millionaire, and I hope those watching just aren't worried about being a millionaire. You want the freedom, and you really want to have something that's yours instead of, working for somebody else for the rest of your life. The thrifting industry has changed. The clothing industry is going to be assailed from every end of the spectrum. Again, I'm not saying there won't be money to be made in clothing, but it's going to be a lot harder because you'll get people that are buying it in bulk and wholesale deals that will blow your purchases out of the water, and they'll get first run and the whole works. And I see that happening now. I could get wholesale clothing right this second, nice shirts and all kinds of stuff for not that much money, which is really surprising. I mean, we talked about it. I wouldn't do it because it's too risky at this point, in my opinion, to get wholesale clothing. Unless you've got some really and it's really good name brand clothing or top end clothing, more to say. But the amount of clothing just in the first 2 thrift stores that I saw was a ton of just low brand. I looked. I know some clothing brands, obviously, like some of the Patagonia and stuff like that. There were some jeans we checked out, but everything there looked like either was picked through or it just wasn't worth any money. So I don't know how everybody else's thrift stores are, but I cannot live on clothing here at all. I could not live anymore on scanning books and Savers close down either at all. So if you're a book scanner in my area or clothing, you sure as heck ain't getting your merchandise from a thrift store around here. That eliminates the flea markets. That eliminates most of the auctions because I almost never see clothing at auctions. So I don't know what everybody else's area is, what it's like around your sourcing venues, but there's not much of anything. The garage sales, I was tempted to stop by a garage sale today, but I was like, it was I would have had to worry about parking in a driveway on a street and back. It just wasn't worth the hassle. I couldn't imagine, enough to make it worth the while and all the hassle trying to get out or getting blocked in or any of that stuff. It just wasn't worth it. And there's just not enough of them around anymore. A lot of people are still a little skittish because of COVID, masks and all that kind of stuff. So it's probably half as many garage sales right now as there was last year. It's super hot. People are letting stuff last longer, so they're not getting rid of their used clothing like they would in the past. That's another aspect that I see for sure. Donations are down on some things, but clothing is they're hanging on to. So you see a lot of the newer, junkier stuff showing up more so. Again, I think some of the retail establishments must be donating it to the local thrift stores around here. How would they get NOS in that quantity? I mean, and the thrift stores do not buy NOS clothing. They would have been donated for sure. I know they don't buy merchandise from anything that I can see here. Savers, I think, did in the past with the Halloween stuff, but again, they're closed. Savers is done here. They went out of business like 3 or 4 years ago. So that tells you how my market has been. Savers in most areas, we've been to a Savers since then, out of town, hours away, but it was a better area. The Savers was awesome compared to the ones around here. My market's dead locally. If I wasn't sourcing in bulk the way I do, again, I don't know where I would be. So it's up to your choices. Your skill set is going to dictate how well you do, in my opinion, in this industry. There's just no other way around it. Yeah, sure, some videos might help you with this or that, or some techniques or stuff, but it all comes down to you getting the best stuff. And again, if you read that article on New York Times, there's three articles I read this week, all dogging on the basically thrifting and flipping and reselling were all in the a spiraling downfall, all because of Shopify and the whole works. Now, here's the point a lot of people miss, and they read the Shopify's doing bad. Hey, they didn't make any money. They're in the negative. Twitter was in the negative for decades, and now it's, they're still arguing over forcing, I won't say his name, forcing him to buy it and all that. But it doesn't scare me when you think about it from a reselling standpoint versus the stock market. I'm not into stocks with that kind of stuff. I don't invest in those. Utilities, public utilities are always the best for me because I've never lost a single dime ever, and I always make money on it. I'd rather have the slow and steady than the quick turnarounds like that, because they're never guaranteed. The utilities are always going to be there, at least the ones we're into. But the whole market is definitely having a thought process going on where people are questioning what's going on, definitely. And that's from corporate America side. We've got ThreadUp. That's one of the ones that was mentioned in that New York Times article as well. It's in one of the other ones, because the other one was secondhand garb, something I think is in the title. I think if you type in secondhand garb and the crash or something along that line, and it was like a CNBC or one of the main blog post things for one of those news agencies. I don't follow most of those, but there's a ton of Reddit boards talking about the same basic principles. So if you're in Reddit, it won't take you long to find reselling dead. Just type that in. There's probably 20 blog posts talking about that right now. Again, I'm not saying it's dead at all, so don't panic and say it's dead, because we're doing fine. Again, considering the situation, I'm not worried. I'm not freaked out. I'm not bothered. We were a little down this week, to be honest with you, which was, down so a little more. I'm going to increase our sales on the next round, which I think is the next. I did sales today, 2 days. They'll end on Saturday. So Saturday morning, I'm upping our discount rate into the 30% range. But that's about all I'm going to do to affect more sales on our behalf. If, again, back to the clothing aspect. Clothing is the one that's talked about in every single post that I see that says is reselling dead. I don't sell clothing, so I don't see that same aspect. I can't sell clothing. I can't get it. If you can't get it and that's your primary deal is clothing, and you're unable to get the better stuff more and more often, you're just getting nothing hardly, you're definitely going to have to pivot. You're going to have to pivot. If you're not pivoting already, or at least learning new areas or trying to figure out something that's going to be steady, you may get in some trouble financially. I'm just being straight out from my heart, from what I see. I personally see this. I hear this from people constantly. A lot of folks are having to downsize and do this and do that, and I completely understand. People reach out to me in dire situations quite often, so I hear a lot of stuff. I've even as like a general manager, I used to hear the most awful things that people would, your employees would come and confront you and say, hey, can you help? Or, man, I've heard some horrible things. And that's the kind of thing that I hear, and there's not much I can do with individual situations like that. I wished I could, but I can't help somebody source in your local area. You may need to go outside of your area just to find good things. I know I've talked about HiBid. There's 3 or 4 online spots you can find stuff on. I know people do buy off eBay. We've done it in the past, but it's I don't like to buy from another reseller who already does eBay personally, because what usually happens if you buy postcards on eBay, check out who's selling them. If they're selling individual postcards, don't buy from them in bulk, because chances are all of the postcards that they're selling in bulk have already been up on eBay. I don't mind if you're somebody selling bulk and they haven't listed them. It's worth a shot on stuff like that. But when the chances of them listing them, again, you can go into sold listings and see, if you're going to buy something off eBay, see what those people sold. And half the time you're going to see that they may have listed something in that lot singly and couldn't sell it. So they dumped it together I've done it. So again, when you see those bulk lots where we're down to like 1,000 postcards, be careful. If they've been listed on eBay, don't mess with them. The only postcards we sell are ones that have not been listed on eBay, because I sort through and I only list the ones that are worth a certain amount. Oh, I'm going to have another Whatnot tomorrow at 6, I think. So I'm going to re-auction some of the stuff that wasn't paid for. I've got some other things. I'll probably blow out a few more, maybe a dozen or so bags of buttons. I've got lots of postcards. I may pull out some magazines, some more comics I've got to get rid of. We're trying to eliminate an 8x8, well, not 8x8, 8x4 foot shelving space so I can get to something and make a little more room. So I've got to eliminate a certain amount of merchandise, whether I want to or not. I don't have the space to do something else we need until we find a bigger building. But anyway, we're going to keep floating back to the situation in reselling. Hey, Mr. Lowe, if I didn't holler out, Eric Jones, welcome, welcome. Thanks, Charles, too, on the help. Hey, Trina, how you doing, Trina? Michael Sanborn, good evening, good evening. Sanborn Coffee, look that up sometime. Those cards go for good money. I sell, I think, every one for like 20 bucks. Danky the Clown, welcome, welcome. Stephen PB, quickly done. Say it isn't so. We are doing well. You know, for us, I sell on other platforms. I do other things, and I get money from other sources. I've shouted this out before. When our numbers get to 25% of our overall reselling business is all that's coming from eBay, eBay won't be worth the time. You know, I'll probably maybe keep the listings up and just get residual from that, but it wouldn't be worth the time to mess with the site. You know, we're actually going in the other direction. We're trying to list more to see if we can boost some of the numbers on eBay and see what happens. We've got about 5 more weeks left. If you're slow in clothing, I would say about 5 more weeks. Once we start to get into August, well, the end of August, you've got school coming back in and play and the whole works. So you're going to have people buying clothing and stuff, back to school clothing and stuff. So some of the clothing sellers should get a little boost if you're into teenage clothing and younger usually. But in general, September is usually when we start to, you know, see that little tick word up. We don't drop off, like we don't fall flat on our face. I've always sold something every single day of the week in quantity. Number wise, we're still within range. I'm not any slower than I've been before. We're actually up from last year at the same time frame. Anytime I'm up, I'm not really too worried about it. I know there's a lot of stuff going on. Gas prices are falling at least. Other things are up. Groceries are up. We went shopping today, and I'm not going to say what I spent, but it was into the hundreds and hundreds. Bought a couple pans and stuff, but prices are up, and the quantity of food you're getting is down. So what you used to get for 16 ounces are now 14-ounce bags of shrimp instead of a pound, and things like that too. So we're getting screwed on both ends, it seems, in my book. But you know, reselling is not dead. Hollywood Reseller, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome. Roberta Hillslip Evans, how are you doing? Can you please add the Patreon link at the end if the live? It's in the if you go down to, where is it? I know it's in here somewhere. I thought it was in here. Oh, here's Patreon. Yeah, I don't know my own Patreon, I'm sorry. I'm not a huge promoter, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. This should be it, I think. I think that'll get you there. I just dropped a link for it. At least I think I did. Hang on, let me pop back up. My feed's sometimes all over the place. Ben, how are you doing? Thanks. Hey, Joe, how are you doing? Good to see you in house. Hey, Brandon, what's up? Hawaii, if I'm not mistaken, right? What's nice? What a nice surprise. About to eat my avocado with brown sugar and milk and a slice of toast with strawberry guava jelly for lunch. I like guava jelly. Somebody else, it was my uncle in Florida. He lived in Florida. The first time I ever had it was in Florida on a English muffin, and that was just awesome, the guava jelly. But Mom's Fabulous Finds, well, welcome. Been down to South Florida many times, lived in Florida for 10 years. You enjoy that, Brandon, though. Butis Sounds, how are you doing? Hey, Dave, Midwest Picker, another fellow YouTuber in-house. How are you doing? I got Annie there, too, another YouTuber as well. Annie's got some really nice videos. She goes into really some depth. Very knowledgeable. Matt Jake, how are you doing as well? Yeah, I need to have another roundtable. I need to set one up. Things have just been, this week has been, we've been swamped. People have found my phone number. We've got all these calls. I mean, just a lot of stuff from just a few video. I doubled or more than doubled our views in like a 4-day time span, and it's just swamped us. I hate to even look at my mailboxes now. Yeah, I slammed the like button. I always forget that. We got 337 people in-house as of right now. I got 75 thumbs up. Again, if you're enjoying the conversation, hit that thumbs up. Hey, Nancy. Hopefully you are doing well also, Nancy. Good to see you in. Renee Duval, welcome, welcome. Naomi, McLaren. Walmart is closing stores to go on. Yeah, I heard that one too. I don't take that as a hurt for a reseller, truthfully. I've got a Walmart. I can sell on Walmart myself. I don't see that as hurt. I see that let me give you an example. I have Republic Services for trash and recycling here where we live. If I wouldn't have talked to a head supervisor at corporate office after making, I've called them like 60 times. We've had service for months and months, and they've only picked up twice my recycling. They pick up on the next street over on either side of us, but we're in like some midsection between two routes, and apparently it's hard for them to figure out that, yeah, we just picked up garbage. We can't pick it up. I had to talk to a guy. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had any service for recycling for more than a month, even though it's supposed to be every single week. When you can't, they should just close the service. They shouldn't offer the service. I would cut off the service because what's going to happen, they're going to lose the normal people who have the trash deal that's still working okay. When you're unable to service, I've seen reports that Walmart is so understaffed in stores, and I've seen some issues here and all that kind of thing. Some of the stores, I personally think, and there was a report, I read that too. There was some grocery stores that are closing, some national ones. There was quite a few different ones that were closing stores, and I think it's more between theft issues, staffing issues, overhead has gone up, electricity, and all that stuff has gone up. When I worked in a restaurant, there was a break-even point. If we didn't make that break-even point for a sustained length of time in one of my stores, I had 33 stores at the end, we didn't hit that break-even. It was $8,000 for Einstein Brothers back then, 20 years ago. You had to make $8,000 in sales to actually break even in the store, counting labor other than the general manager and assistant. That labor wasn't included in that $8,000. So that was a corporate carryover. It was handled in a different account. It wasn't considered labor because I can't control that. So once it hit at a certain point, they closed those stores down. Maybe you might see them busy at some point or think, hey, but that's my take on it. Working in corporate America in places where I've had to close down stores, I don't always see that as for them it's a cost-saving factor, I would say. I've heard that they would have like some local pickup, like a place where you can just pick stuff up, which would be a different story. You would have to have a minimal staff. It could also then be used as a Amazon return or a Walmart return, and they could just use it as a backhaul facility to backhaul a semi so they're not wasting a trip back to a location. Look up backhaul if you don't know what I'm talking about. But there's a whole industry on that. Around here, Kohl's is backhauling Amazon returns from the Kohl's store. When you take it to the Kohl's store, what happens is they've worked out a backhaul deal. Now, I've worked out these personally myself when I ran a region for Einstein Brothers. I had delivery trucks, so I was able to bring stuff back from a bread maker who helped us with some things, and that way when I brought stuff back, I got money for a return trip I wouldn't get otherwise. So Kohl's has worked out a deal, so when all the stuff is returned from Amazon at a Kohl's, you get their little coupon and stuff. That's what I always take it. It's free. You don't have to print, and I don't have to wait. It's taken on one of the Kohl's delivery semis, comes and drops off the delivery for Kohl's, and they backhaul all of that Amazon stuff to somewhere else. And they're making money off of it. So it probably pays. Amazon probably gives them a pay for the labor to run an employee over there, 2 a day or whatever we figure out to. So it pays off in the long run. They've got one area they can get a cheaper rate on shipping all that merchandise back, all the returns from Amazon. And I'm sure there's a lot of them because I've been in lines sometimes with 5 people in front of me just to do a return. More people in the return lines for Amazon than at the front in any of the kiosks or cash out sections in the whole store, honestly. So You've got to take into account some of that other aspect of it. So that's just my take. That's another reason why, like, Toys R Us is back, if you didn't know it. And from what I hear, they're going to expand in like a couple dozen stores, Macy's and stuff, where there'll be a Toys R Us inside of a department store. That may be a thing. You might have a small, like a little convenient-sized Walmart. Well, I've heard talk about stuff like that too. So who knows what the market will be on that? But I don't see that affecting us at all. I don't see that cutting into the reselling aspect of it personally. It just means there won't be much grocery sourcing for local people because it's expensive to buy it online and have it delivered, from my personal experience. Anyway, that doesn't scare me though. I get your thought on that, Naomi, of course. Tommy Bernhard podcast. Kernach says eBay is killing it. The move to Amazon servers is doing big things. I don't know about that. I don't listen to what somebody with them saying killing it. The killing it that you're talking about is for their authentication and all that kind of stuff, like the trade cards and the comic books that are doing like 5 and 10 times what they used to just 2 years ago. That's not a collector's market anymore. That's what everybody is missing, and everybody misses that what's happened is Wall Street has turned in your hobby, if you're a comic book collector or a trade card collector or a sports card collector, they've turned your hobby into a marketing franchise and into an investable entity now. It's an investability item. It's something they can invest in because if they're graded, if eBay creates a vault, they create online, price guides that'll tell you how much it's worth. It's an investable product. That's the only reason all this stuff's built up around these. That's it. And I just wish people would get that, because grading's fine and dandy, but there's no way a Marvel Universe 1 Black Panther, just a standard card out of the 160 whatever volume card set is worth $1,000 graded at 9.8 or $3,000. They're inflated immensely. I mean, on an astronomical amount because of Wall Street. They're buying them because the traditional markets aren't safe now. They can't invest in retail because retail's crashed. They can't invest in oil and gas because who knows where that's going. Yeah, they're making record profits and all that stuff, but who knows what'll happen. The price goes up, it fluctuates. You can't just sink all your money into oil and gas and stuff. It's Wall Street the reason all those prices are where they're at. I don't know anybody who personally buys a $5,000 comic book. I don't know anybody who buys a $5,000 watch, or other than some rich famous person, or a $5,000 purse, or a $5,000 pair of tennis shoes. I don't know anybody. I don't know personally anybody who buys any of that stuff. Yeah, maybe I'm limited. I'm not in those circles, and I don't care to be, but the problem is a lot of that's all a certain group of people are buying those. It's a limited amount. And just like with the trade cards, the minute Wall Street has other options, those markets could crash. That's why eBay just worrying about those types of things, then again ignoring all the other stuff, very obviously, with the amount of people telling me their sales are in the dumps and terrible and awful, and it's the worst they've seen in 20 years. These are folks that have been doing it as long as me, in some cases even longer, with Yahoo and stuff, like we were in Yahoo auctions. But the point is that the markets are being controlled by Wall Street. Look at it. I've called brokers. You can invest in a local broker into comics, PSA graded comics, high-end comics. They're even fractionalizing in them. That's why I said with eBay's vault, that's a way for them to fractionalize ownership in something. And I'm sure secure SEC is going to have to play some game in this if that's what's going. Who knows where it's going to go legality-wise and stuff. I don't trust those markets. I'm not an NFT guy at all. That's a created market. They created something just to make money. Just like the Bitcoins and all the movie stars who endorsed all this stuff, and they've crashed and they've quietly acted like they weren't involved in it and stuff. Again, because it's just a created market. A bunch of famous people say buy this NFT or get into this Bitcoin or whatever the market is. They get their money right away. So if you make money or not, they don't. It's not up. It doesn't matter to them. So again, that's what I worry, that all this is all financially based. The collector's market, it's going to go down. It's just like it's happened twice. It happened in the 90s. It happened back in the early 70s. The 90s I remember very, very, very much. It was comic ball series were part of the reason that the trading card industry died back then, because of the mass production. And then they flooded the market. Upper Deck did this. They flooded the market. And that's when the crash came with Comic Ball 2 and then the mass production and stuff. That's why I'm shocked that any of the Impel or any of those from that era, 90, 91, like Marvel Universe and all, could be garnering this kind of money. Those were dumped products at one time. It dumbfounds me. So again, I don't honestly believe that the markets that eBay's betting their bank on is going to stay solid like they think it is. The minute the correction happens and gas prices are down and the economy's soaring better than it is, the everybody's going to jump on the quick turnover. Comic books and stuff aren't quick turnover at some point. That's why the NFT, somebody was trying to sell one for millions and it only sold for 1,000 or some crazy number. The first Twitter tweet was one that they created an NFT out of, and it went. I mean, the amount that it was bought for, they were going to get a minuscule amount from what they originally paid for it, and that's what I see happening. These people are going to start pulling their money out. That's the same thing's going to happen to some of these markets. There's no way that those cards are worth that. If that's the case, I probably have 10 or 15 of that same Black Panther card here, because I've got 5,000 count long boxes of trading cards from just Marvel Universe. We bought them in mass quantity. I have 20 sets of holograms from every one, 1, 2, 3. I got 4. I've got the inserts. I've got the Venom ones. I've got the what's the other one? Advanced Comics promos for those. I got the whole works. They were dumping the market with those back in the day. That's why there's just no way on earth that these are being bought by true collectors. They're investments for people, and that's going to go away at some point. Well, thank you very kindly, Auction Monkey, for the $10 super chat. Welcome to brave new reselling world. The new buzzword is pivot, as folks work to change business plans. I've pivoted forever, and that's a good term to call it. Thank you very much, Auction Monkey. I do honestly and sincerely appreciate that super chat. Pivot is what you need to do, or expand your knowledge truthfully. And I'm not just saying that because I use that term for my channel, but I want to always expand my knowledge. I swear to you, that's I took classes in college just to learn something, just to figure out something, just to know a little more than my competitors around here, because it's cutthroat here, and I mean bad. I would not be able to survive, even as a single person with no kids, no wife, nothing, living in a small apartment. I still couldn't survive on clothing here. I don't know how anybody could do it. It's just not feasible anymore. It's so far, it's flooded with stuff from every end of the spectrum. It's about the same price for me to go to a department store and just go to their clearance aisle as opposed to buying it from a thrift store now. Why would I do that? I could just pick it out, and the amount of returns is like 20% on NOS, and that's like real numbers. That's like Amazon quoted numbers. It might even be higher than that in some categories. So you've got to, I mean, the quality is down. Everything else that's going around with clothing. If you are a clothing seller, again, I'm not saying you can't make it, but you better have some really good in. You better have the best knowledge out there. You better have the best darn sourcing to keep your business growing. Even if you're doing okay now with clothing, and again, I'm not trying to just pick on clothing, because books and household goods are the same boat. Not all of them. You know, some household goods are harder to get now, so the prices are higher, but you're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to expand. You're going to have to know something else. I luckily did it 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. I don't remember exactly when. It's been a long time. We just said, there's no way this clothing thing in this area is going to work. I may have cut it off before other people would have, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't grow. For me, just to keep getting the same amount of stuff and not be able to expand my business you're stuck then. You don't want to be stuck. You don't want to be just barely getting by and just getting enough to hit this level, and then you never can get any more after that. That's going to screw you over. You've got to be able to grow it. Again, that's why volume is the best way if you can't get individually great items. You either got good items or you got volume. Those are your two choices now. There is no other option that I could see. It's either you've got the best stuff or you're going to have to go to volume. Because you can't make it on just everyday, average, common stuff and only have 500 items up. Your sales are going to be dismal. There's just no way around it. I know everybody starts off at 0. I started off with 0 listings, but you're going to have to spend as much of your free time to learn new stuff. I don't know what else to say. That's the best way, knowing more than your competitors. The only reason I can survive around here because the stuff I mess with, no people have knowledge, and the ones that even halfway kind of know them still aren't sure. They can't afford to pay up. They don't pay commissions when people send stuff their way. There's a lot of reasons why I get volumes of stuff that people ridicule. I mean, the stuff that I get it doesn't look like much to somebody. You're never going to get that for it. I hear that all the time. Stephen PB, well, thank you very kindly as well. I honestly and sincerely appreciate that. Well, thank you very kindly. That's very kind words. I do honestly appreciate that super chat. Not needed, but I do honestly appreciate it. It does help the channel out. Where was I going with that conversation? Hang on one second here. What you sell is like the number one thing you need to do these days. I can tell you without any doubt whatsoever. If you're not making money or at least sustaining yourself right now, you're selling the wrong stuff. That's all I can tell you. Now, I know some people will get on me and say, well, that's not this, that's not that. The one that I always like is people will say, well, you're showing stuff that aren't really sales on eBay and stuff. Every one of my sales or what I talk about is stuff that I've sold or obviously that I've pulled to show you like sales history and stuff like that. Those are all true sales, and I try to kick out any ones that I have a doubt whether they sold or not. I even kick out the ones that are like new stuff that just sells insanely. I try to stick to just the vintage because that's what I know the best of. And another thing people get confused, and I got a video on Patreon going a little into this in depth. I might sell something for $150. Somebody else may sell something for $1,000, but it may never sell again for that price. There's only so many people for any item that you're selling that want that item. Clothing is a perfect example. If there's 1,000 people that are looking for one specific type of shirt, but there's 4,000 resellers selling that shirt, what do you think is going to happen? The price is going to be low. Most of the 75% of them aren't going to sell. And that's what's going on right now with clothing, with home goods, with books to some. If it's a comic book, video games are still selling, but they're selling for this standard price that everybody else is getting for it. People price up video games around here at garage sales. I can't even get them at a pawn shop for a decent amount to make any money. Maybe once in a blue moon I might find one that they missed, or a CD-ROM game that's worth some really good money, like Neverhood for an example or something. But it's all slim pickings around here. There's if I had to live off of thrift stores, not clothing wise, just thrift stores in general, and I had 10 of the ones like around here, I'd be dead. I'd be living on welfare. I wouldn't be able to eat. I'd have some issues. Let's just say that. I know there's people around here that personally have told me that. There's people in tens of thousands of places that probably have similar issues with that around as well. There is no answer other than what you sell. You're going to have to get that sourcing down. And you're going to have to pivot. We'll go to that pivot word once again. You have to pivot. You cannot keep selling stuff in a flooded category and hope to gain ground. What's going to happen, one thing's going to happen, a lot more resellers are going to be quitting. So I wouldn't doubt that eBay's sellers are going to go down in the next quarter when they announce the quarter 2 2022. Probably be in like 3 weeks or something, I'm guessing. But I'm interested to hear their numbers. Sales-wise, they may be still gaining some ground with those $5,000 categories where you got to authenticate and stuff. Mind you, you don't have a choice. If it's over a certain amount, it goes to their authenticator. Who do you think is going to pay for that? That's going to eat into you once they stop giving it away for free. I don't have any doubt that it's a money thing. It's money. They're now teaming up with some of the same people that grade stuff and the whole works. And that's for everything. That's for all those categories, and they're going to keep expanding them. They're going to crush sellers because of that. Again, that's happening now. Some of the smaller ones. It's not going to kill the ones that are diehard. If you're diehard and you really want the freedom, and again, I'm telling you, the only reason this is good for me is because of the freedom. I don't mind working 80 hours a week. I don't mind working every day of the week because I can stop anytime I want. I can do anything I want, any day I want. It's all on me. But if I want to make a lot of money or a decent amount where I can keep packing it away in the bank, I got to do a set amount of hours. And 40 hours ain't going to cut it. 60 hours isn't going to cut it. I like what I do, so again, it's not like labor-intensive work. It's cool work because I get to see some cool things that, maybe no one's seen the light of day in 100 years, you know. Anyway, let's go on and let's see if we can get some questions here. Reselling is hurting big business. It's a matter of time before they come for us somehow. Puravada? I'm sorry if I mangled that name up. Yes, to some extent that is. I think that is the case. That's why the Vero list went from a single page. I remember when it was just one page on there to a monstrous encyclopedia of companies that you can't use their term or names in there. Again, that's another reason why you need to pivot. You need to pivot from reselling specifically in one specific category. If it's again, I can't tell you enough, I can't stress enough, start getting away from flooded categories now before it's even worse. When winter comes in and fourth quarter comes in, you're going to find more of that product trying to be leveraged from these national companies. It's going to be more of it available. Those boats are still, you know, these products are produced 18 months in advance. 18 months in advance, and they're backed up over there. So there's a glutton of cheap, I mean a massive amount of cheap clothing out there, and there's not enough people out here to buy it because you've got 18 months long worth of stuff backed up. Household goods and stuff. Not everything, again. Some of it's scarce. So you've got two different things going on. You've got some items that are scarce and some items that are flooded beyond belief right now. Don't believe me, go look for yourself. Go to a department store at the mall and see how much marked down clothing they got. If you got a Burlington Coat Factory or Ross's, any of those kind of stores, TJ Maxx, look at the amount of cheap clothing in those stores. Look at their discount sections. Look at the quantity. If the back door, if they open up from the stockroom, look how much crap they got back in there. I know somebody who runs one of the TJ Maxx here, so I've seen fast, quick, easy, cheap clothing that doesn't last sells on Amazon all the time. And again, I'm not trying to pick on Amazon for that aspect because it's everywhere now. There's no escaping it. The only escape is to pivot and expand your knowledge. I'm going to keep saying that because reselling isn't in trouble if you sell the right things. Those markets at some point in a year and a half or whatever from the backup start point will level back out. It's not going to be dead forever, but what will happen in that time? Will corporate America come back in and say, hey, we need to start recouping this? We already know that some of the main department stores have started to offer secondhand goods in those stores. ThreadUp is in a couple department stores, if I'm not mistaken. You know, and because secondhand consignments, high-end consignments are fairly popular around here. They're more popular than a thrift store. You know, they buy some of it. A lot of it's donated to, at least to the Cancer Society ones around here and stuff like that. But they're more high-end ones, you know, and people would rather do that, I guess, in some cases too. But you've got to get out, or at least broaden your horizons. You've got to have your eggs in many different baskets. Don't have all your stuff in one single basket, one single spot, one single category. That's what sinks you. Just like in farming, a perfect example, if you plant the same crop on the same ground all the time, that ground may be dead and you won't be able to plant anything on it for a little while. You've got the crop rotation. It's the same thing. The markets are going to rotate. Things are going to be crashing some categories, some specific items, and other ones will be doing even better. You know, they'll be in the opposite direction. You know, learn something now before it's even worse is my take. This could keep going in the wrong direction. Look for eBay's numbers. Look for Amazon's numbers. I can almost guarantee you the sales are starting to slow on some sites with most standardized goods. eBay's betting on the high-end collector's field to be the one-stop for the high-end people, and hoping that group of maybe 1,000 people on the whole planet that buy in those huge $5,000, $10,000, or $100,000 items is going to still be there just for eBay. You know, and that's what they're banking on. Shopify got it wrong. Again, I'm not giving up on Shopify because that's a financial aspect. That doesn't mean that the platform itself doesn't run real well, isn't working. It's the same thing. It's just a store. You could transfer that store to somewhere else, worst case scenario. So don't think that that's affecting you as a reseller. Yeah, it's affecting Wall Street who invested in there thinking reselling is going to be gangbuster. When eBay, shut out their numbers from last year and stuff, and they weren't so great. Again, Wall Street. This is all based on Wall Street. Those articles are based on Wall Street. Those articles are based on corporate America's take on what's going on, not ours. It has no bearing on you, me, or anything else other than the flooded categories. And eBay has always had flooded ever since I've been on there, there's certain things that we avoid because there's too many other people selling it. You know, to avoid the Vero, to avoid the flooded categories, I sell stuff that isn't made anymore. There's no one can Vero a 100-year-old item. It's in public domain. Again, I've very specifically picked certain items so I avoid any kind of headache that I can think of. I can't get Veroed for 99.9% of our items. More than that, it's like a minuscule amount of things that they could even attempt to do it on it. They're not making new. They're vintage. There's ways to tell if they're old or new. I'm not going to get conned on it. There's enough collectors. There's enough new collectors coming on. But it's not areas that are always graded. It's not ones where you've got Wall Street investing in. Look at where you're going to invest your efforts into and expand from those. Pick area. Again, it doesn't have to be things that I sell. There's tons of other stuff out there. Crafters have been doing excellent if you're not aware. Not all crafters, but again, certain niche markets. Sports-related crafting has been very, very popular. Those who are doing crafting and artwork related to sci-fi and superheroes have been doing popular, have been doing good. You're talking one-offs and things like that. You know, sketch cards and paintings and stuff like that. You're allowed to do that. You can only just do one. You can't make copies of it. It's an original piece of art. The only problem you'd have is the list... worry about the title. You can't use certain words because it's not by certain people. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. I got videos on Patreon talking about that, but yes, I know I've ran it. Let me try and pop back down here. I don't know if they switched to Amazon. I would say no, but I know they have new tech going on because you can see it when I see when they're doing updates and things don't work. And I check out source code. I check out the code of the pages and. Anyway, anybody can do that, you know, FYI. I can look at the code on the page. I can see when they've moved. Some of it's accessible, some of it's not, but anyway. Let's see here. That's why I sell vintage made to last, Naomi. Yes, that's good, definitely. Let me pop down. Naomi's liquidating her clothing, it sounds like. Yeah, I would doubt Amazon would want to work out a deal with eBay unless they've got something going together, which wouldn't make any sense. I would think Amazon would be wanting to stay away from that, and I would think eBay would be worried that Amazon would have data information or be able to unofficially scrape data from it. I don't know. Tommy may be right. I don't know, but I can't see eBay doing that or Amazon doing that personally. I know it's money, but I heard it was an outside company, but again, I don't know if that's even true. eBay, if they were smart, they would own it all themselves. Why would you rent when you could own it and then you could still sell it at the end? And chances are it'd just make more sense to own it for security purposes as well, too, in my opinion. Roberta, love the Sublime shirt. Yeah, I always like Sublime. Yeah, I know some of the lyrics may not be to someone's taste, but I've always liked Sublime. Sad when the singer died. Yeah, Goodwill doesn't have, around here, Goodwill does not have jewelry anymore either. It's just junk jewelry at the ones around here, honestly. I've noticed that as well, too. Goodwill, most of the Goodwills around here all have online source to sell it. Literally. And I wouldn't buy anything from the online Goodwill here because it always sells for more than it's worth. There was 45, there's Jack upstairs. There was 45s they had again, and I do look occasionally. I can go out there and look at them in person. And it's just not worth it because I've watched so many of the Goodwills. Again, I think people are somewhat investing in it, and they're doing it to, for donations and stuff like that too, I think. Or they just aren't researching the stuff before they buy it. I don't know, but there's no way I could make money off of buying it from my local Goodwills, even if I picked it up and didn't have to worry about shipping. Just because they always go for way more than I would want to sink into the stuff. And not even from a cheap aspect, just from a practicality aspect. If my ROI is going to be at 2%, I would never want to mess with that. Unless I was selling so much crazy volume it wasn't even funny. But then, again, your time is invested in that, and the time would kill it. they've been migrating it forever from for the last year, from what I understand. And I know I've heard many different conversations on that, but I've talked to a couple people at eBay before. I've talked to somebody who talks to somebody at eBay. I really think it's been going on for almost a year, in my personal opinion, prior to October, the October update. That's what I would say. And I would say that the minute they start changing over categories, those categories are probably on the new servers. That would be my personal opinion. Because of the way the searching and the old tech and all that other stuff, from what I understand, that would be the case. Personally, again, as from an IT aspect, I do have an IT background and a degree. I would say that's what they did. So the last update in October and this update, as they move sections over, that they just store like all the comic books are stored in one server and things like that. It would make more sense, you know, because they're all pulling from the same database and all that kind of stuff, just for recalling or search queues and stuff. That's my opinion. Just knowing how a database is designed, that's what I would have done. It would have been easy to lock them to a specific category. So if you're moving things tied to that specific category, they're all locked together. You're not moving or misplacing something. My take on it, but sourcing is becoming harder to do. Everyone, this is Twisted, has gone to trying to get eBay prices for their stuff. Yeah, if I see somebody that has like printouts from eBay, I just ignore those. I won't even usually shop at a place like that. I know there might be one or two, but my time is better spent not sourcing locally, truthfully. Again, if you're enjoying the conversation, please slam that thumbs up. I got 486 people in house. I got 180 thumbs up now. Show some love for the channel if you enjoy the conversation. Dave, your sourcing from Goodwill is the equivalent of a MLM, seller nagging friends and family. Multi-level marketing is what MLM is, if you're unfamiliar. You have to expand your sources if you want to succeed. If I didn't have the bulk sourcing ability, I'd be dead in the water. And I know I hear everybody, their death pile, my death pile. Stop calling it a death pile. That's the pile of stuff that hopefully will get you the money and hold you over when something happens. That's your backstock. That is not a death pile. And more so now than ever before, that's not a death pile. Don't think of it that way. Stop calling it a death pile, for crying out loud, because that saved a lot of people that I personally talked to, because they had extra stuff sitting there when they couldn't find anything, or when COVID was bad and stores were closed. You want to have backstock. I got shelves full everywhere because I want that. I don't have anything into it the way we buy and sell. So for me, all it is taking up space. It's not costing me a dime extra having bulk backstock. It's the only way to survive. I can list till my heart's content without ever having to worry about getting new inventory in. I buy new inventory, don't get me wrong. We're down at, I only spent like $700 or $800 this week so far, which is down for us, but you know, I don't need it. I'm only popping on the good stuff that is a super good deal. We spent $300 on some cards the other day because, man, it was a real good deal. I'll probably do a video on that for Patreon anyway, but you've got to expand. And anybody who's telling you to keep going on with clothing and household goods, I would seriously think about, you know, maybe not watching them as much anymore and hearing another version of maybe what would be a better route. Because I would feel guilty if I was telling you to keep buying specific clothing. Again, I'm not saying for everybody, because there are some good clothing deals, but here, where I live, it's done. It's gone. There's no clothing abilities to be a full-time clothing reseller unless you're getting it wholesale from somebody. End of story. You know, and I've been doing this for a long time. If I can't find it, and I don't know anybody who can either, but, you know, with the people that I know, the people I talk to for years of doing this, it's gone. It's gone. It's went bye-bye here, the clothing seller. So again, if people are still telling you clothing's the way to go, man, you better open up your eyes and look at what happens and realize, look at how clothing's ordered 18 months in advance. It's paid for 18 months in advance. So what do you think happens to that when that can't get shipped over here? You've got order after order after order after order backed up. You've got 18 months possibly of some merchandise backed up. 18 months supply of deliveries on a daily basis that should have already been delivered, backed up. You know, it's insane amount of merchandise that's sitting around for some categories, and other categories, like, let's say, bicycle parts. You can't find them. It'll correct itself. It's not like a permanent thing. It's just the fact that the markets only keep so much backstock in there because that's what they've sold for the last 20 years. And when some oddball event like the pandemic happens, people start to not be out and drive around as much, gas prices are up, so there's bikes and all this stuff. All the parts are bought up. Everybody bought everything. It's just a one-time occurrence. So, it's going to stabilize. Things will be back to normal at some point. Supply chains are in pretty good shape right now. It just takes time to catch it all back up. But again, once China and all the lockdowns and all that stuff's gone, and you're just going to be a glutton of so much clothing, so much cheap-end clothing. If you don't have that connection for the high-end clothing and don't have a constant routine repeatable way to buy that, you better start sourcing other stuff. You better learn something. You better expand your knowledge. That's the conversation. That's the biggest thing I can tell you. You're going to have to open up your eyes. Knowing how retail buys is a huge thing. That most of the people are telling you clothing and this and that, they don't know how that clothing's purchased. They don't understand that it's bought. Toys are the same way. That's why, Tickle Me Elmo ran out, because they purchased it 18 months or a year and 10 months in advance, because it has to be produced. They have to go through, design and manufacturing, and molds have to be stamped. It's a huge process to do anything. So when something runs out and it's a hot item, it takes a little while to correct the market. That's why Tickle Me Elmo's everywhere after, 6 months of being out. All those markets are going to correct. Clothing will correct, but it's going to take a year or two. And then hopefully, as long as corporate America doesn't get their hands on this or start opening outlet spots in all their stores, which I've heard that could be a thing too, that could crush it in that time. Again, you need to be aware of these issues, and far too many people just watch people finding all this awesome stuff, and it's just not like that. It's just not like that, and it is tough. But you're in trouble as a reseller if you're not expanding. I'll put it that way. Reselling itself is in trouble in certain categories again, but not reselling as a general whole. Again, I wouldn't be still sitting here doing reselling and listing and paying employees if I didn't believe in that truthfully. We've been through it all. We've been doing this for heading on 30 years now, and I've seen all the dips and all that kind of stuff. This isn't any worse than it's been. In fact, again, we're up. So I can't complain, even if it's a little slower than it is. It's going to correct it. We're going to get some sales back in if you're dead before, if you're in clothing. You will get some for Christmas. But again, retail is going to be flooded. It's going to be flooded. Morph, I think I'm going to dump my unlisted clothing on Whatnot. Just be careful shipping and all that stuff over there. I know there's people that have been crushing it on there. Just be careful. Charles Loupe is dying a slow death, in my opinion. Dying, I got you there. Yeah, they're just making poor decisions, not understanding the markets that they're making the decisions on. eBay doesn't know. Yeah, they have data. They got data on what's sold in the past. They can see that the stuff's selling now for high dollar. They're seeing money. They're not seeing where that money's coming from. If I'm going to do business with somebody, and I'll tell you something. We did the videos, and I had a couple that went viral, and I had local businesses reach out to me. And, we actually had some conversations. I had some meetings with some local businesses and stuff, and we've talked, and I've had some options and some opportunities and stuff. Where am I going with this? I just totally lost my whole train of thought. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just lost my whole train of thought on that one there. It's been a long day. I'll come back to that. I'm sure it'll pop back into mind in a minute here. But I lost my whole train of thought of where I was going with that. Yeah, old age, I guess. Sorry. I've got so much going on. Lisa, how are you doing? Welcome. And Mr. Hale, how you doing, Bob? Well, you're always welcome. You know it replays later on, Bob. For those in Patreon, again, there is a video up. It's about 30-some-odd minutes. I'm hammering on stuff like this on Shopify because I had a ton of questions from Patrons. I'm not doing anything different with Shopify. That's still my full-fledged goal. If you're unaware, Shopify, you can hook up your Shopify to YouTube now. So I could have my Shopify store directly linked into YouTube. And it's down, I don't know, I just noticed that the other day. It's not on this video, I guess, but it'll show shop or something down if you look. So there's no, banner scrolling anymore. It's all just like a little shop button you have on your channel. Again, I'm not big on that, so I haven't even hooked it up or done anything with it, but Shopify is fine. I'm not worried about the financials, as I said earlier. Where we at? Hang on just a second here. Let me pop down. Amazon Seller 99. Hey, Don, I think it's hard for anyone to argue that sales aren't down. Every large retailer is down 20% or more. Amazon is down a lot. It's a recession. We just have to work hard and get through it. Again, Amazon Seller 99 is 100% correct. It always corrects itself at some point. Whether you can weather the storm, I should say, is going to be the question. Do you have enough ability to get enough to last till it starts to pick up? It's not going to be forever. You know, I remember the 2007, 2008 with, you know, the crash there, the housing market and all that. We weathered through that pretty good, actually. With the pandemic, I've done much better with the pandemic than without the pandemic. You know, and again, I'm not wishing anything ill of anybody or anything whatsoever, but the point was we were positioned in a good market with good stuff at the right time. Again, because I pivoted ahead of time. I pivoted well in advance. If this isn't a wake-up call right now for those of you who don't want to expand out, or again, I'm not telling anybody to quit. It's not a quit situation. It's a, you're going to have to dig in, and you're going to have to work a lot more. If it's just about money is it's all that's driving you. It may not be the right fit for you. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want the freedom, and it's the freedom that drives you more than anything else, I swear to you all that freedom is the number one thing that this gives me. It's a freedom to be with my family, be with my kids. When something happens or anything, I can do whatever I need to do at any point at all. I can deal with it. I've got backup plans for everything, and you know, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, I can't stress that enough. There's going to be people in some big trouble who aren't pivoting, who aren't doing something else. I hear that. I've said this before, but I talk to single parents quite often. You know, things happen. Somebody that I've talked to for quite some time lost their spouse, and they're raising the kids, and you know, it's a dire situation when something happens. We've been there where I've counted how much money we had in our cart at a grocery store because I could only spend $80 for that week for me and the wife. You know, I know what it's like, and I don't want to be there. You know, again, I'm making enough. The freedom, though, is again the bottom line. Pivot now, or you're going to be in trouble. Or at least expand out. Don't just sell stuff that's flooded categories. I've looked at a lot of stores. I've done a ton of reviews in Patreon. I've looked at stores on the side here and there for people, and there's a lot of new folks. No disrespect to anybody. No, this isn't an insult. I had the same kind of stuff for a while myself, but it's very common. It's very readily available stuff, and very readily available stuff means that a lot of other people will be able to get the exact same things. One-offs or replenishables in scarcer items are your best route. And I don't care what they are. Doesn't matter what they are. I know people that just sell doorknobs. I know people that just sell pipes, books, jewelry, you name it. I probably know somebody who just sells it. Not everything. I don't know a lot of sports sellers, but there's people that just do matchbooks. Mr. Magazine, $1 Million Peddlers, Dave and Chuck over there. They've got Dave's into magazine, comics, and a bunch of stuff like that too. Paper and cheaper and stuff that a lot of people don't mess with. You know, and people say, well, you give away a lot of that. What about your competition? Well, who's going to find these? Most of the stuff I buy, even if you know enough to look for it, you're not going to see it because I find interesting, odd, unique stuff that just again, I can't even tell you what I'm going to find until I find it. So, I could show you a million things. Look for kids' books. Well, there's kids' books everywhere. Are you going to be able to find the right kids' book? Again, it all comes down to that. You're not going to find the same thing I'm looking for. So even if I give away or there's competition, it's not the same. It's not like I'm selling the same Nike shirt as 400 other people or 1,000 other people, or I'm selling the same Reebok as everybody else. It's not the same. They're different markets, and you've got to treat them like different markets. You can't consider, if you were a clothing seller your whole life, the markets, the people who are buying from you in vintage and collectibles are different. First off, you can charge shipping on almost everything that's vintage and collectibles and not have to worry. You don't have to worry about that. You can do calculated shipping, so you never have to worry about price changes ever again with shipping costs. It's all automated for you. I've got an article on that too on e-commerce bites for those that may be interested. I got a link to it on my About Me page on here, or my community tab on here. Automation. Again, I'm a big, anything you can do automation would be great on eBay. So your time can be spent researching, figuring out new items. That's where your extra free time should go. Don't be sitting there wasting time watching TV if you're having trouble with your sales. It's not movie time or Miller time or whatever time it is. It's time to buckle down and figure out something else that's going to get you the revenue coming in. If I'm having an issue not selling some certain type of items, I just can switch to a different category and start listing a different category. That's, again, if you don't have back stock, again, I wish no one would call it your dead pile, because your dead pile, death pile, that doesn't help you. That sounds like it's bad. Every retail establishment has some form of back stock. And as a reseller, if you have good back stock, you're not going to fail. You just stop sourcing if you're not having a lot of sales. You have all your back stock, and you just start listing a bunch of stuff. End of story. Problem solved. The more you list, usually the more sales you're going to get. Now, here's one more last misconception I wanted to bring to everybody's attention to with listing more items. Let's say last year you had 15,000 items, and this year you have 30,000 items. And you expected that you were going to do double the amount of sales by doubling the amount of listings. It doesn't work that way. You may only get a 30% boost, a 40% boost. If you're lucky, maybe a 60% boost, but it doesn't work for dollar. If you double your inventory, it doesn't mean you're going to get double the items. A lot of people, what they make the big mistake is they'll take lesser value items that aren't as good, to try and get more inventory up. And if you're putting lesser quality items up, you're going to sell less of them. So try to list the best stuff. Try to list stuff that's in your range. Set a mark on how much you want everything to sell for. I try never to list anything anymore for under $15. I try to, and again, it has to be, massive, profit margin even at that. I got to be making 10 or 12 bucks off that $15 item. That's my goal anyway. My other goal is, I've said this many times, is we don't worry about how many items I can necessarily list an hour. I worry about how much dollar I can get up in an hour. 400 or more in merchandise, I want to get up every single hour of the day. Now, if I'm selling and I'm going to list mass quantity, I want to list a whole bunch of inventory. I'm going to want to list stuff that's quick to list, that's at least $15 a piece. Postcard, perfect example. I can easily list 52, 54 postcards in an hour. In that other 6 minutes, I can scan those 52, both sides, on a duplex scanner in like a minute. If you have a duplex scanner, I'm telling you the truth, that you can scan like 100 cards in a minute. And it's doing both sides, so that's 200 photos in like a minute on a duplex scanner at 75 DPI. We have an Epson, I've got two Epson DS510s. I got one over there, and I got one sitting back here in the corner with an extra cord for it. The right tools, obviously, but again, dollar for dollar. I want to list so much an hour. It's part of the reason why I'm not as big of a fan on Whatnot, because when I calculate my hours, my time invested into what I'm getting, it's not anywhere near as good as I would get on eBay, even on a slower day. So it's not terrible. Again, it has great potential, I guess, as long as some bugs can be worked out. But let's pop back to the chat here and see where we're at. Morpher. Retail stores have an excess of some kinds of products right now because of all the stuff that was ordered last year that was hung up waiting to be unloaded. Finally came in. Exactly, perfect example. So everything's flush. All the discount shelves are full. And you think you're going to go ahead and do... RA's hurting right now. If you do retail arbitrage, you're probably having a little bit of trouble, at least in my area. I still look at the discount and clearance sections. I still do Amazon, obviously, but the amount of stuff that's showing up is just stuff that's in clearance on every Walmart around here. And in quantity, it's stuff that's not hot. So if it's not hot and I'm not going to be able to sell it, it's a waste of time. The stores realize that, a lot of this is going straight from the store as soon as it's delivered right into the discount aisle. That's exactly what's happening with a lot of merchandise. It's going right into discount. Last year's clothing designs aren't in fad anymore. They've already designed new ones. So who's going to want to wear a 1.5-year-old style? I personally don't care, but a lot of people are like that. So nothing wrong with that. That's just not me is all. So yeah, you're Morphe, you're 100% right. That, again, as I've been saying, clothing is backed up worse than anything else. Toys aren't, but clothing is. Big items are going to be harder to get. Again, then they've raised the price on shipping larger items, so then you go into that aspect of it. But they were like stuff that was shipping over, they were trying to ship over smaller items that were easier to get over here, where they could get more items as opposed to just big items that wouldn't sell a lot. Where are we at? Hang on. Trevor something. I only do clothing, primary pre-owned, but I'm lucky enough to live in a city with a professional sports team and several major hospital systems. And it's still much, much harder than 2 years ago. Yeah, it just depends on what you're doing. It just depends on all that. I can't, here you can't get it. As I said, there's going to be some folks that are still going to do very good depending on their area. Your thrift stores may not have caught on. They may not be wise. They might be newer thrift stores. The management may not be great. There's a lot of reasons. There's a couple thrift stores around here that are okay. Again, just because of the people working there aren't up with everything going on. So, you know, they'll eventually catch up, and then it will be the same way everywhere else. So, Oregon W, welcome. Is there Em in there too? Glad to have you definitely in-house. Welcome, welcome. Charles, okay, now FBA, yes, it is, but it depends on what you have. If you're messing with food gets a lot of people in trouble. Those I see tons of videos. Well, I don't personally see them, but I see a lot of the thumbnails. And hey, you can make all this money like Trader Joe's. You buy this spice, you buy that, you make $1.50 bottle and all this other crap. I mean, that's just the rat race. They're only giving you the low-lying fruit that's not worth their time to do, in my book. And if you mess with food, and we've done it, I've done nuts, peanuts, not peanuts, but walnuts and stuff we do almost every year around Christmas time, but you've got expiration dates, and those things change. One area that still is viable is pesticide and stuff. So if you took the free online Amazon classes, you could be, I'm certified. We can sell a lot of stuff that other people can't, but FBA is still okay depending on what you're selling. That's all I can say. There's so many things that wouldn't be good. I don't do FBA books anymore. It's not worth it. At least now that they've killed our bread and butter. Back in the day when we scanned books, you just scan and it would beep and tell you if you're going to make so much money. You could set the parameters. So if I'm not going to make $5 or $6 and it's not in a certain ranking, it doesn't beep. So I can just at least for the barcoded ones. You know, and I could fill a cart up. I could just throw them in a big Home Depot box, or even drop them off if we were on the road sourcing. And that would be my bread and butter. I'd sell so many of them. But nowadays, with storage fees and all that, I stopped doing all that. Toys are still fairly decent because there's no expiration date and stuff. Food, I always run into the hassle because maybe you could start off being in the buy box. Somebody could come in and bump you out for a few pennies, or Amazon could have their own brand and compete against you. And I've seen it. Just like private branding used to be a major thing. Nowadays, it's very hard to private brand anything unless you've got you're some major famous person or something. Private branding is tougher now than any time ever in history, in my personal opinion. I've never seen private branding so bad. We've done some private branding. My postcards are technically a private branded endeavor for us. Write off. Yeah, you can write them off. I'm assuming you're talking about writing off the cost as a loss and then redonating them, Naomi. I'm not going to stop reselling, but I am going to have to go on Social Security to make my bills. See, I hear that all the time. I hear stuff exactly like that. Kohl's donates NOS items to Goodwill. That could very well be it then, Stephen. Sourcing and whatnot is awesome depending on category. Yeah, again, it depends on that. Depends on the seller. I've sold some stuff on there. I don't care if people made money off the stuff that I sold. I sell stuff all the time. I sell stuff to my competitor knowing that he's going to resell it. He's even told me that. I got a buyer for this. I don't care. If I get the price I want, who cares if somebody else makes money off of it? I'm not greedy. If I was greedy, I would sure as heck wouldn't be talking about stuff on here. I'm not greedy. I'm fine. I'm a mellow person, and it's not worth that headache or aggravation. I'm not a big fan on buying stuff sight unseen, like on a whatnot thing. I haven't bought anything on the platform, truthfully. Yeah, Morpha. Amazon didn't make money for many, many years, so that doesn't scare me at all, honestly. Vintage discoveries. I only sell vintage jewelry and there's no slowing on it. That's true. Vintage jewelry sell. We sold some really nice pieces just this past week. Getting it for most people though is the problem. Now I know sources. There's an excellent one here that every 3 months I could have a year's worth of supply picked up all at once, for $2 a pop. I mean, I just strayed away from custom jewelry because I didn't feel like going out and sourcing, I guess. Now somebody might call me with a really good deal and I'll probably pick it up, but Annie, I think Savers still buys Halloween costumes to sell. Yeah, I think so too. There's a Goodwill, New Hampshire that has a ton of new stuff. I assume they aggregate the donations of overstock, etc. There, that could very well be too. There's a couple around here, as I said, one just over in Michigan. ThreadUp won't give you any money for Old Navy level brands anymore because there are not enough profit. Again, that's a perfect example. Annie's calling it right there. Any of those Aeropostale, any of the mall brands are dead for reselling mostly. Not everything, but most of them are because of stuff like that. If go to most towns have a high-end reseller store, or not reseller, a consignment shop. Check out some of those. There's 3 or 4 here in town, and I've been to all of them, even the high-end ones and stuff that sell like $500-$600 fur coats and stuff, and they sell them at those prices. They don't just sit there. I've seen it from every gambit. The stuff that's still going are obviously mostly the higher-end stuff. Those type of store brands, the material, the products aren't very good. It's inferior to other products. I'd take a good pair of jeans without the stretchy stuff in it, whatever it is, the spandex material they mix in with everything. I hate those tight-fitting jeans and stuff. Just my personal. I don't like how they feel on me. Hey Sam Dallas, welcome. My sales have been way down for 2 months, eBay vintage mostly, but for the last 2 weeks I have been sending offers to watchers. 30% off. My sales have been through the roof. That's what I said. I would rather list high and then just run a sale, because they're looking at perceived value. And anybody who doesn't understand or doesn't mention, if you're watching a YouTuber or something, again, I'm not trying to, there's a lot of good YouTubers besides me. I'm not, in general though, if somebody doesn't get what perceived value is or doesn't talk about it or doesn't stress that aspect of it, they don't know, they don't know business enough, I would personally say. There's tens of millions of dollars have been invested by corporate America on perceived value and pricing structures and all of that sort of thing, on running sales. I mean, there's a methodology. There's psychology behind that. I mean, there's science behind a lot of that, and that science holds up test after test, study after study. So there's the perceived value aspect in it. I took Psych 101 and I took a secondary psychology class too. If you ever get a chance, do it and take it along with like Business 101. You'll get a good grasp on things to help with your thing. There's certain prices I always use because they get better sales than certain other pricing structures. 99's like $14.99 versus $15. That 1 penny means something, because the first digits are what they look at. It's only $14. It was 15, or a 30%. A double-digit sale, discount sale, is good. A 1/3 sale is always good, because in somebody's eyes, well, that's a third off. They don't know you've got a 3x pricing structure. I'm still making 2/3, an extra third over my bottom end on it, even if I discount it 30%. Well, more than that, 66% I'm taking off basic. Well, almost 70%. What am I thinking? My math is dead today. Again, hopefully that makes sense. I'm down over 100 sales from last month. The mad scientist. Again, it comes right back to what you're selling. For those in Patreon, I put out my schedule, a schedule of exactly how I do my end and sell similar, how much I do, when I do it. There's a video discussing it on there as well too. So if you haven't seen that in the Patreon page, I would check that out too, because it goes into great depth on my 2-day schedule and everything else like that. That works exactly what Sam's saying with, end and sell similar, offers to watchers, the discount, all that stuff works. It only works to a certain extent, obviously. Everything's not going to just floor you with $1 million in sales right off the bat. Jay Jackson, whatever I find I list. Some things go low, but where I am, a lot of free stuff. So $5 for Free is good. Again, you got to take into account your time into that. If you're spending time to list, 20 minutes to list a $5 item, even if it is free, you might have wasted more than $5 just in your labor, because you could have been listing something else that could have gotten you more money. That's just if you don't have anything to list, that's great. That would probably be your best bet. But if you've got anything else to list or any other options to get better stuff, that's your best bet. A $5 item will sell far less because everybody could have that same $5 item. Again, no disrespect to anybody. That's just the philosophy should be to get as best stuff as you can get. Don't be slouching trying to dig out the best possible stuff that's going to get you the most money right off the bat. That's your best thing. And if you're new and you have a limited amount of stuff on, you can't do long tail. Don't even think about it, because what you're going to have is a bunch of stuff in your store that may sell over the length of time, and you're not going to be turning over stuff, so you're not going to be getting money coming in to buy new stuff to keep your business going. When we first started, it was all about selling just everything. I'd be paying bills between sales. I just sold this, now we can afford to pay water bill today. That's literally how we did it. When the market had crashed, this is after 2007, and we did what we had to do. And we had kids, unfortunately, but then, not unfortunately we had kids, but I had kids that we had to go through this with us. My kids, thank goodness my kids didn't care about the latest clothing and all. They weren't like that. Anyway. Mr. Hot Wheels, how are you doing? Good to see you in. I was watching your video on calendars and wonder if you've ever seen a 1942 Coke that is a 5x7 picture of 3 men framed with a pop-out calendar on the back. I'd have to see that one. I can't picture it. Can't picture it. It's probably like a giveaway and not like a wall mount calendar, I would gather, if it's on the back like that. Have you looked in the Coca-Cola price guide, the new one that came out like 2 years ago, I think it was? I would check that out. That doesn't ring a bell, though. I've probably seen 100 different Coke calendars, and that doesn't ring a bell at all. I think you're saying let it be, they're twisted. It will get rid of a lot of sellers that can't hack it. Yes, it will. It will, because they'll have to take another job to afford to pay the bills. I'm not wishing any ill upon anybody at all. That would be the last thing I would want. But that's a fact of reality of what's going on right this minute. It has gotten harder. The flooded categories are like the worst. You've got to get away from those. Yeah, I would have to see it, unfortunately. I couldn't give you any other information without seeing it. Could be a fantasy piece, even. Hey, Biff Bofo, how are you doing? My sales are down a bit this week, too. Just more time for listing. Exactly. If I list a whole bunch of stuff instead of worrying about the sales, I'm going to sell more stuff. I'll end up, if I list and fill in all that gap, let's say I'm not selling, I'm down 20%. I just don't source. I just list all week. I'll run a little bit of a sale. I'll increase my sale from 28%. Right now is what we're running, 28%. I'll increase it to 30%, because that 3 will be a much bigger number, at least visually, perceived value-wise. I work on perceived value. And that's why I may get a higher price than a lot of other people for the exact same thing, because I'm worried about that perceived value. They see mine first. Wow, I'll probably never see that. They'll just buy it. It doesn't matter that somebody else did the same thing for half the price. I still sell it for those. I have better luck when I raise prices as opposed to lowering them lately. Tommy, ThreadUp has 4 million plus listings on eBay. I did not know that. We won't buy from ThreadUp. My wife's bought from them 2 or 3 times, and she's been disappointed in every single one. Some of the stuff was misidentified. A couple of the clothing pieces she got were juniors, and it didn't state that, so... Craig Winus, not even close to dead. There are more garage and estate sales every week in my area of Southern California than anyone could ever go to in the time frame they are running. Yeah, it's not like that around here, unfortunately, but California is one of the most populous states, so there will always be more there than anywhere else, usually. Naomi, my sales have been steady all summer, but you're probably still on vintage, too. Yeah, vintage clothing is a different story because it's not the cheap modern-day stuff. Vintage clothing, I'm true vintage, 60s and before, will almost always still sell. I still do buy leather jackets that fit me. I hate to say that, but I've got more than I need. But I could sell them. I could turn around and sell them for really good money right now because leather jackets are hot. coming close to winter. It's a perfect time for leather jackets. Betty Lou Mount, well, thank you very kindly. I do honestly appreciate the kind words. Kim Landers, welcome, welcome, thank you. Ah, my feed just bounced. Hang on just a second. My feed just bounced. Now I gotta find out where I was at. Looks like we got a troll in house. Hang on just a second here. Let's see where we're at. Hang on just a second. I'm sorry. Let me pop down. Nah, my feed's like all over. I can't even go back up anymore. Oh, that says Midwest Picker, but that's somebody else is going after his name. Can I survive selling only clothing, electronics, and eBay? Probably not. Auction Monkey, when comics crash again, I'll be there buying boxes again for pennies on the dot. Yeah, that's exactly what happened last time. I was inundated. I could have bought as many comic books as I could. Filled up my van every day of the week pretty much after the crash in the 90s. Again, I'm not worried about that either. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I can't tell people that complain all the time. Plenty of money to be made always. Just need to pivot, keep doing the same, and get the same results. My sales do go up every year. My numbers are better this year than they were last year by a considerable amount. I mean, double digits all the way across. Again, not worried. I look at the sales for year sales. I'm not worried about a week here or slow or 2 weeks there. The end result is, at the end of the year, did I make more money than the year before? Am I up 5, 10, 15, 20%? Most businesses want to be up 3 to 5% every year to grow, to keep up with all the other stuff that goes on. So when you're double digits, you're always ahead of the game every time. And in all honesty, with all the stuff and spreading our eggs out all over many different baskets, many different platforms, our sales still keep coming in. So I have a few dollars less in sales in one platform. I get money from something else. I sell some of our toy lines or some of the garage kits that we make. Again, as long as you're selling in multiple platforms, I don't have... I'll put it this way. I'm still making right this second what I was in fourth quarter. I mean, overall, maybe one area is down and another area is up, but overall my numbers are still in the fourth quarter range. We're still ticking up, dollar for dollar ticking up. But it's not just based on eBay. It's not just based on Amazon. These days, since our hands are in so many baskets, it's a combined total. And I don't worry as much if one platform's down or one site's down, or even a couple, because again, I've got other sources. If I want to fill in the gap, I could do a whatnot every night of the week, I guess, if I really wanted to, and sell just some of the odds and ends I have laying around that I don't really want to mess with. There's always an option to do something. There's always an option to sell something. Again, it comes down to your willingness to invest the time into figuring something out. The only way I know all this stuff or we're doing well is because I spent all this time for the past almost 30 years doing this. And I spent all of my time for the past, we're going to 15 full time. I spent all of my time doing this full time. I'm not piddling around. I don't sit down and watch a movie. I don't take a smoke break. I don't do any of that. I'm working. When the wife wants to do something, we're going to go to the park, or we take Jack or one of the dogs to the park. That's fine. I can stop anytime I want. It's my time. I'm earning my money. I don't slack. If the wife's and again, this is you got to do this. If you're not doing well and you're only putting in 30 or 40 hours a week, wake up and start putting some more time in. I'm not saying life should just be working all the time, but you're going to have to put the effort in. I can't speak that enough. You've got to put the effort in, and that means you're going to do more hours than you ever did working for somebody else. But you're going to be making all the profits. You're not sharing anything. When you work for somebody else and you're only putting in 40 hours, they're taking the 80% of what you've earned, 85, 90% of what you earn, and giving you the 10% crumbs as a pay. That's how it is. Restaurants I worked in, if I figure out my even with bonus, a week, $1,500, $2,000 maybe you might make in a week or something with your bonus and all. That week I may have done $70,000 in sales in the restaurant. it doesn't compare out. If I sold $70,000 myself in a week, I'm taking home tens of thousands of dollars. But again, I'm putting in the work. I'm putting in a ton of work. I've earned every dime I got, and I think hopefully everybody out there gets that it's your money now. Just like penny pinching and keeping track of your expenses and turning off lights when you're out in the room. All that lowers your overhead. We've got LEDs everywhere because it's cheaper. We check certain filters, or we have things cleaned and air conditioning and all that stuff is done ahead of time because it ends up saving me money at the end of the day. Every dime I save from this business is a dime I've earned. It means I don't have to work as hard. When you can recoup that. That's, again, why you need to keep your eggs in not just one basket, but everywhere you can think of that's at least worth your time. I wouldn't do some of the platforms I'm on if I wasn't making money on it. It wouldn't be worth my time. It wouldn't be worth my effort. But you can't keep them to one side. You can't keep doing the same thing. If you've been having issues with sales for 2 or 3 years and you can't gain any ground, you got to change up. You've got to change it, whether it's pivot or not. Yeah, Auction Monkey, when comics and cards crashed in the 90s, I bought out whole comic stores. Yeah, we bought out a lot, but it was more like a personal thing. That's why I have like 20, 40 sets of Marvel Universe cards and all those. We kept them because I was like, I was a pack rat with stuff like that because I loved the sci-fi and the comic books. So I used to buy that everywhere I could get it. Yeah, with comic books, I truthfully feel that Wall Street's going to kill... The next crash is going to be caused by Wall Street investors in comics and cards. That's going to be the next crash. When they pull their money out, and there's not going to be anybody investing because they want investing in $100,000 items or a comic ball card that's only worth $1. They're spending $3,000 because it's graded. Those people aren't going to be out there buying it when they realize that's not going to resell. Right now, there's enough Wall Street people invested that they're just changing hands between themselves, basically. At some point, when regular traditional markets resettle and they start going back in the normal direction of things, they're going to pull their money out. They're going to realize that a crash is going to happen, and they're going to the bubble's going to be burst. I mean, we're living from bubble to bubble these days, is all it seems like. Recession or not, if you're selling or in the right genres, the right areas, the money is still there. It's still there. I sell more high dollar stuff now than I do anything else because the people who buy this still have the money. California is the #1 place I ship to right this second. And that's, again, why those Golden Gate Yacht Club cards there are going to sell probably in the couple $100 range very easily, very quickly as well, too. It's a no-brainer in those aspects of it. Bake Sports Cards Plus. Yeah, I've done the cards forever. I started collecting cards in '76, I think. I had, like, when Kiss cards were out. '76, I think, was the King Kong cards, which I think were my first ones, as well as the Marvel stickers we used to buy, and the Wacky Packs. I used to buy the Wacky Packs, too. Those were out in the 74 or 76 range, the ones that I was buying. Like, I was 5 or 6, and you could walk down to the store at the end of my street, which was like 10 houses down, and buy them there for a nickel or something. I don't remember the price, but... Well, thank you very kindly, Bill Tyrell, for the $4.99 super chat. I appreciate your channel and honesty so much. I have lots of work and learning to do, but my goal is to be a full-time reseller within 5 years. It took us 3 when the market was much better than it is now. So that's a realistic one. I would shoot for, say, 3 as your goal and see. You may be able to push it. I'm not saying it's all about work. You've got to have a mixed space between family, free time, and what you're doing. I know that Mike Rowe has a video, Passions for Suckers. I'm sorry, passion is not for suckers in my book. It depends on the type of person you are. I'm not a money grabber. I'm not interested in wearing the fanciest clothes. I could care less to have, a $100,000 car or anything. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about the clothes. It's material crap to me. It doesn't run my world. I'd rather be spending time with the family or take a nice trip out in the mountains and have a cottage or a cabin with a jacuzzi or a hot tub. That would be more fun to me, or have the money in the bank in case something happens. That's the next goal. Obviously, just stock it away, put it aside, put it in the bank. Yeah, the pandemic was great for comic book sellers. So yeah, I get you there. Nunya Beeswax, very good one there. Sports cards, yes. I live in a one-bedroom apartment and have made a living from eBay for nearly 2 decades now. It can be done. It can be done, yes. Greg Rupp, definitely can be done, as I said, but it's few and far between. That would be my biggest comment on that. It's few and far between. Those who are motivated and want this, really want this, can make it. That's the difference. If I was not as motivated and just kind of, I probably wouldn't put as many hours in. I would get discouraged by a lot of the stuff that would happen, or lack of sales and stuff, and I might give up. But again, I'm motivated. I don't care if it's hard times here and there, and I'm going to have to bust it just to get through it. It's what it is. I can't fix that. All I can do is work around it, put in some extra time, and get the results out of it. This month has been, again, I'm not giving you fictitious. Overall, my business this month is up. We're fourth quarter numbers. I mean, again, it's a combined total, and that's the biggest aspect of it. If I just did one site and that site was down, then what would I do? If you're just on eBay, what are you doing when your sales drop down and you're not able to recoup them because, let's say, you're in a flooded category? What can you do? You have to have, again, back to quantity. Quantity always comes up into that ballpark of numbers there. Where are we at? Bite, tongue, behave. Moon Knight card. No, I don't know about the Moon Knight card. I know why you're asking that. Yeah, Nunya Business. Cards are even a lot more volatile than comics, though. Yes, they are. I would say that's probably the case, too. Comic books still do have a die-hard group. Trade cards, yes, sports to some extent, at least vintage sports, but the new ones, they come and go. Our son was into Yu-Gi-Oh when he was younger. Well, now they're just sitting here. So you got, somebody might be heavy into sports, they might move, and now they don't care anymore. Their life is taken over. So that happens a lot. So the cards and stuff, it is volatile. The amount of people grading them changes the value of cards too. If there's only one graded at 9.8 and all of a sudden 50 more people have 9.8s, the value of a 9.8 wouldn't be as much. Grading scale, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, but yeah, so they don't want small sellers, so big business takeover for sure. I think eBay wants whatever they can get, but I don't think they're smart enough to understand that what they're doing is hurting or scaring off the small time sellers, and they're pushing them themselves to another platform, all because they expect that these high-end sales and collectibles and $5,000 tennis shoes and stuff is going to always be there. And if it hits a true recession, even those rich folks who have a ton of money are going to be hurting because the rest of us won't have enough money to buy anything new, so retail will crash, and on and on and on and on. That's the unfortunate result sometimes of some recessions. Yeah, again, you've got to know your items. One bedroom, whatever you're selling. And we sold out of a small two-bedroom place before with kids, and our place was packed. I had shelving lining our bedroom wall, and any space you wanted to get to had shelving in it. So yeah, it's possible, but it's not fun. And, there's only so far you can get to some extent on it. Again, you've got to be motivated. I don't care what you're selling or where you live. If you've got the biggest house in the world, you've still got to be motivated. There's no replacement for motivation for having a goal or a dream of where you want to be. That drives me every day of the week. I don't have any concerns. I don't mind getting up at 5 in the morning every day of the week or whatever time it may be. I don't care because I know I'm one step closer to hitting a goal or my results or having more freedom or something. It doesn't bother me the amount of time or effort put in. Maybe 20 years ago, I'd be, what the heck, this is crazy. But it's all my money. It's all your money if you're doing this on your own. Let's see where we at. Sourcing is in trouble. Henry S. Every person I see is a reseller to some degree. A lot of people have to be. A lot of people have to be. And I think somebody else had commented that a lot of those people won't be reselling forever. They probably won't be once the market's economy goes back to normal and pandemic's done, if it ever is. And, that's going to go back to the normal aspect. There won't be any, they won't be the sourcing like that. There won't be a hassle. They'll mess. There's a lot of reasons why I think that'll be the case. So I do expect the reseller amounts on eBay to drop. Some businesses are open, so the opportunity isn't there. Yeah, comics are still selling, don't get me wrong. Tommy's saying, I won my first auction at a thrift store, and I paid $15. I know I'll make good money when I sell them. Does anyone sell Rob Lux items on eBay? Like Adopt My Pets, and I don't know what I think I know. They got the little tags on them. They're like a code number you got to put in. I think I know what you're talking about. A Deal Finder, welcome, welcome. RCQ, welcome as well. I've never lost money on flips in 2 decades of reselling. I spent my very little money doing so. You must know your items to make it worth, as Don says here. Yeah, I know what I sell, and I don't mess with stuff I don't know. I guess that's a good thing. And when I'm trying to get into a new category, I spend my time to understand it, and I don't wildly just buy something hoping. If there's a thousand postcards in front of me, I'm not just going to buy them because the price is right. Time, consideration. I'm going to look through them. If there's enough money there, I might buy them. But that goes for anything. Don't just nab up something, especially if you don't know it. Every day I get somebody, hey, I bought this and I just sunk this money and hoping I was going to make a good deal on it. So many times I've had to tell people you paid 10 times more than you'll get out of the item. That's a factor in it. You've got to know your stuff, and knowledge is the most important skill or power you can have out here is knowledge. Knowing more than your competitor is the best way to make the most money. I know more about the stuff that I sell than every dealer that I can think of around here. And that's not trying to brag. That's just I've only done this kind of stuff for years now. And it's stuff that they don't, everybody I know or our dealers and sellers around here, they sell stuff completely different than I do. They don't mess with these little small, tiny, they don't have a staff to do it. So for them, the learning curve would kill them for years. I've got, 20 years and 30 years plus in stamps. You can't just go into a category and be able to do it. When I want to retire, I've got enough stamps that I can last for 20 years of me listing and never run out, and good dollar ones. But again, I know my stuff. I've been buying them for years just for that purpose. They're easy to ship, so I'll have my heavy stuff gone by retirement time, and I'll be shipping the easy, fun, enjoyable stuff, and that's fine. Again, we've planned it all out. I don't know about everybody else, but I've planned out stuff like that. I haven't lost money in I don't know how long on anything, just like Greg's talking about there. I know my stuff. I don't buy it if I don't know it. Twist, I've been doing media and man cave items, do it part-time. I do a couple of sales a day, not big money, but when I have 7 items a day going out every day. Yeah, see, it all adds up. Even if you're doing it part-time, it's extra money. If you're able to do it part-time, great. Add up to your, money in the bank. If your full-time job is paying for all your bills, it's all extra money. Don't blow it. Again, if you want to retire early, reselling is a good way to do it. But again, you're not just going to be able to do it without any knowledge, anything with it. You've got to have the brain power to do it. You've got to be able to have the willpower to do it too. I know this is what gets too many people in trouble that I personally talk to. They sit down, they relax, they think I'm home and I'll go do this, I'll take a bite to eat, but they never track their hours. So the almost always when I tell somebody start writing down your hours for real, I've even posted some pages up so I could see that everybody else is trying to track them. And the point of it is that most everybody is wasting hours of their week on stuff that's not productive, that's not making them a dime, and wondering why they're not advancing their business. I micromanage my own time as well as employees, and if you schedule things together, you chart your course when you're sourcing, like your path you're going to drive, you plot out your garage sales so you're not wasting 20 minutes driving around randomly. You know where you're going. All that's time saved. If you save 20 minutes a day by charting out your course, multiply that times 7 days, and then multiply that times 52 weeks, you're saving weeks worth of time from just a few minutes a day. You got to manage all that stuff. That's one more aspect before we cut this. I know I'm talking way too long today. one more aspect, the time factor. No one figures in your own time into what you're doing. You're not paying yourself if you're not an S corp or something, so you're not maybe thinking about it, and your time usually crushes people. That's usually the factor. Like selling cheap things. Again, I'm no disrespect. It's not meant as a crack. That's what we did when we started off for several years. It's not going to grow your business as fast as you want. It's not going to give you the peace of mind or the job security or the business security because, again, if they're cheaper items, everybody has the ability to get those cheaper items most of the time. Unless it's really vintage stuff, and chances are it's not only worth $5, it's worth 20, 30, 40, 50. But my voice is probably going out, and I've yapped way too long today. I do appreciate everybody coming in. I do honestly, sincerely thank all those who gave super chats. Never necessary. If I missed you, I do apologize on that. I've tried to get through a bunch of questions here. I could probably talk all day and answer questions. But again, if you're enjoying the conversation, you haven't hit that thumbs up. I still have over 500 people in house right now. Please slam that thumbs up. Show some love for the channel. Everything I'm speaking today is the truth, in my opinion, from what I've seen from doing this for 30 years. Pivot, learn new stuff. Hang tight if you're really into this. If you're passionate about this and you're still struggling, just invest some more energy. Invest time. Chart what you're doing. Write stuff down. Think outside the box. Look for different items. Look for stuff you wouldn't normally look for. Go to places you may not normally go to. At least once. You'll never know unless you do it. You know, I've been to every place you could source at. I've sourced at the mall, for crying out loud. You know, even department stores you can source at in the mall right this second. You know, anyway, there's just a lot of opportunities. If you're not finding it, you're not doing well enough right now, you're going to have to expand what you're doing. You're going to have to put more time in. Research stuff from home. Go through the phone book. Look online. Sort for consignment shops, pawn shops, if you've never been to those type of places. Every store that sells, even antique malls and flea markets, most dealers only know certain things. All you got to do is figure out what they don't know and go back to those booths for the items they don't know. Same thing with flea markets or any of that kind of thing. I went to Kohl's. I bought a couple things at a clearance at Kohl's. And I was returning Amazon drop-offs. I wasn't there for any other reason, but there was just so many clearance. And then, again, I just scan it with my phone. I can instantly scan the barcode and look on eBay these days, thank goodness, too. So anyway, we're going to cut it short. Well, not short. We're going to cut it long, well over what I normally do. I do appreciate everybody coming out again. One last time, slam that thumbs up. Show some love for the channel. If you missed the beginning, go back and pop it on there. For those in Patreon, I've ran a little longer. I don't know if I'll get to all the emails. I think I got 17 still to go through. But if I don't get to them tonight, I'm here in the office at 5 a.m. I'll try to get them out before noon. Everybody's responses and everything on that, too. So it's been a long day, and we're going to probably end it off on here. Appreciate everybody, and I thank you very kindly for all the support.